somewhere. So
yeah, because it is.
I'm going to take a look at that for sure.
And them. But
hi, Gina. All right, so what do you think? It is 1 o'clock. So I know some of you, I'm seeing in the crowd that some of you I know have already used Google Forms for Classroom, but we're going to kind of go through the basic steps and then give you time to ask questions and show you how to import from Google Classroom. But we definitely want to answer your questions throughout this time. But we'll start from the basics and then take it from there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then just go to my drive and create a form. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with, so I'm going to add as a collaborator. I'm going to add this so that he can share it with, like we can do it together if we need to. So of course you can just go ahead and title your form. I'm going to call it my math quiz, and I'm going to go through the different icons that are on the Google form. This first icon here is if you have add-ons that you want to add to Google Forms, and Jonathan's going to talk a little bit more about that later, but you'll probably see that puzzle piece if you do have add-ons that you've added to Google Forms to kind of make that work productivity. There's different apps that you can use. This is your theme. This is if you want to change the color, if you want to choose an image. They even have now the font style where you can change the different fonts in your quiz. This eyeball here is if you want to see what the quiz is going to look like when it's finished. We're now in editing phase, but as I'm editing, you can take a look at the preview to see what it's going to look like. This settings part is what's most important when you're doing quizzes because you want to make sure that you're turning this on and that you can use it. So in the settings, I have my general. I want to collect email addresses. That's most important because you want to collect those 99100 numbers as they're taking a quiz, because that's going to help you import when you go use the gradebook. And here's where you want to just probably restrict to Warwick School District. Up to you if you want to limit to one response. And there's some features there. So any questions on this general?
Shelly, I usually turn that response receipt off.
Okay.
Because, like, as soon as they take a quiz, let's say you give kids 24 hours to take it. Well, if the first kid takes it in hour 1, it'll send them a copy of all their questions.
Oh, good to know. Okay. All right.
Once all the kids have taken it, then I manually return it to them. So I will turn that off.
Okay. Good to know. Good. Great tip. Thanks, Doug. I'm going to click on presentation here, and this is if you're, Jonathan's going to show you how we can put it into sections so that they're not completing the whole quiz at the same time, but you can show the progress bar. You can shuffle question order. This might be if you are in class and the kids are next to each other. And then you can give a confirmation message if you want that they finished it. This is just an overall blanket statement. It's not individual feedback. We can show you how to do that later. And this is probably the most important one. You want to make sure that you're making this form a quiz that gives it, as we go through the editing process, that gives you that answer key that you assign point values. And then that's going to be when we upload it to our Google Classroom that we can import our grades. And again, the release of grades, that's probably, Doug, do you pick later?
Yeah.
Yep. So, and then you can choose if you want them to see their missed questions, their correct answers, and their point value. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And it's already collecting their email addresses. So it's already collecting their 10099 numbers, but maybe you want to know what their name is if you're taking a look at the spreadsheet once this is all done. So one of the things I usually do is do a short answer and then have them put your name. So that's what I do for first. Another thing I want to show you is you probably want to make all these questions required. And in order to do that, you're going to go over here to the 3 buttons and to go to preferences. And you can click on make questions required. That's going to make all the questions have that little red asterisk that shows that it's a required question.
Oh, that's nice, because I was manually doing it for every question.
Yep, I just happened to go back and review my module that I made about 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that. So now every question that I do should have that pop up.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I taught Doug something today. It makes me happy. All right. So with Google Forms, with the Google Form quizzes, there are only, I believe, 4 or 5 types of questions that you can use that will be graded. The first is a multiple choice. The second is a checkbox. Short answer is something short answer is graded automatically. And I think the paragraph one, you would have to go back and answer the different questions. So I'm going to go through, I think drop down. Did I say drop down? I think drop down's another one that they include. So because it's in quiz, I think it'll automatically pop up. So do you see how it's automatically toggled on required? So my first question, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to go back here. This is the quiz that I created when I did the module 2 years ago. But if I go and I can paste from a doc, and then I can go ahead and put that in as my question. And then I can go ahead and I can highlight these, go back, and then it kind of automatically reads them and puts them in there. So my first question is a multiple choice question. I then want to go to my answer key and I want to choose the right answer. So in this case, it's an acute angle. And I want to give it a point value. It automatically defaulted. If you saw when I went to the settings, it automatically defaulted to 1 point. If I wanted to make it 2 points, 3 points, whatever you want, you can do that as well. Down here is where you can add feedback. You can add feedback. This would, again, be a blanket statement for students that get incorrect answers. You could put something in there. You could even, if you see you have links there, you have where you can include a video. You can also include something for a correct answer, like good job or something like that. Any questions so far? All right. So I think
I think Nikki has a question.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I think
I do have a quick question.
Yep.
With the feedback, I know you can pre-place feedback in there. If you do a short answer, can you give feedback after the fact?
So yes. And that's a pretty new feature, I think. Okay. Molly had a question about that recently.
That's what I was asking.
Yes, and I didn't know the answer. So I'm going to show you later how once we get feedback from everybody, how you can tell Johnny specifically some information. You just need to let the kids know that they possibly might have that feedback so that they know to go back and look at that. So maybe that's something like in the stream or something, like I gave you your quizzes back. Please review the information. There might be individual feedback that I gave you. I think that's a new feature. I don't remember that before. So, all right. So the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to pull again. And now I'm going to make this one. You see, I think the choices now are not as much as it would be if it was a regular form. So I see multiple choice, check boxes, drop down, and then I see the short answer and paragraph right there. So if I paste the question, oops, I can go back here. And I can put in there, this one I'm going to make check boxes. Oh, I don't even know what that last one was. Let's see, what did I put there? Pentagon. Oh, I'm just going to delete this. So the thing about this one is there could be more than one answer. And this is where it gets a little tricky in the answer key. So if square and pentagon are my answers, I would probably want to make that 2 points. And I would check in my answer key what it is. The thing about this is if a kid just puts square and triangle, it's not going to give them any points. So it's an all or none kind of thing. So if you do choose check boxes, you want to go back and take a look at their answers as we get the answers, because you may need to change it to if you're going to do half credit. Does that make sense? All right. The next one I'm going to do is, it's pretty much the same thing. It would just be a drop down. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to add another question. And this one is going to be a drop down. Oops. So then I can put my going to my answer key, it's the same thing. I would choose pentagon, give it a point value, and I would be done. You can do short answers in this. I can choose short answers. When I choose a short answer, you have to make sure that you're spelling the answer correctly. So let's say I'm asking again. Actually, I'm going to take this one and I'm just going to make a copy of this one. And I'm going to make this a short answer. And the answer is going to be pentagon. But what if the kids spell it incorrectly? So if you see it keeps adding. So what if a child starts it with a capital letter? Or, you know, if you have the primary kids and they're spelling things wrong, so you can kind of add what you think the kids might answer if you have other optional answers for that. But that's the trick to the short answer. When you pick things like the checkbox and the pentagon, you're just going to have to make sure that you go back and you look at the kids' work. The last one would be the paragraph. What's that?
I always mark all of the other answers incorrect.
Okay.
What happens if you don't mark that? Like, let's say a kid types in square. Would that mark that as correct?
So no, do you see how I have those two options? It's just allow those two options to be the two choices. So if they do answer it with a capital, they would get credit for that. Okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if those are the only two options that would receive credit, what's the point of that checkbox that says mark all other answers incorrect?
So I think what that's saying is, I'm going to have to double check on that. So I'm just saying, like, if it was square, if it was anything else, so if I were to.
I think I know. I think short answer, you always have to grade by hand.
Okay.
But if you mark that checkbox, which I usually do, it'll automatically mark it wrong. And then I can always go back and say, well, they were really close. I'm going to give them the point anyways.
Okay.
Where if not, you'd have to individually go in there and check every kid's question.
Right.
Whereas I'd rather see that it popped up red, and then I only have to double check the red ones for closeness.
Makes sense.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah, that is a great explanation.
I've always leaned toward the whole, if it's short answer, I'd rather just not even try to put in potential answers, because then it's the headache of, 20 kids like, oh, but I put this in. But that makes a lot of sense to at least put in some possibilities, and then you're only sorting through the incorrect ones and then making those changes. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, because I just did that for my chemical reaction test. And let's say a kid says sodium reacts with water, and I put that in as the right answer. Well, a kid could also say water reacts with sodium. So it marked it wrong, but I quick saw what the answer was, and I was like, oh, yeah, they just put it in a different order. So then you just give them a +1 point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then that paragraph one again, I mean, I think that you don't even put answers for that. If you were to put a paragraph question, then you would have to definitely look at the responses. Am I right about that? I mean, I think for the answer key,
for the paragraph, there's essentially no answer key.
Right. So, Jonathan, do you want to show them how to do the sections, or do we want to take a look at what the results would look like?
I'll jump in with sections, and I'll just kind of transition to just showing some of the ways you can sort on your spreadsheet if you do want to grade that way, and then I can kick it back to you for the importing piece if you want.
Okay.
We can get Doug to share about the add-ons. We can start looking at those then too.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, sure. I'll share on my screen then.
Okay.
Okay. So. So this is something that I know Nikki, we actually were working on messing around with this a little bit earlier in the year, just adding different sections. But if you didn't know that that's something that you can do, you can kind of have students get directed so that, and this math quiz maybe isn't the best example for it, but if we wanted to click on this button right here, we could add a new section. And where did my section go? I just lost it. Let's go from here. And one example that I kind of like to do is if we had, and I know this is a math one here, but let's just like transition to something else. If we had perhaps a video and we had a question and said, watch the video and, choose the correct answer, whatever it would be. And I'm just going to make that a multiple choice set here. So that's like, here are just some random things, a key, an apple, and a penguin. Okay, so what we would have is, if we did decide to go ahead and put a video, or if we had something here for maybe it was a picture, when we add the sections, we can have it so that if the correct answer is the key, and I'm going to go to the answer key here real quick. Sorry. And we can set it up so that if students choose this answer, they can move on to question number 2. But if they choose an incorrect answer, we can have them almost go to another section that requires them to have some forced remediation, if that makes sense. So that they would have to maybe answer another question or watch another video or read another short segment prior to getting to the next question. So in order to set that up, if we go to, and there's my other sections. So this could be wrong answer. And maybe I have here, please rewatch, or please watch this video and try again. And actually, one thing that I like doing with this is almost making the remediation section, please watch this video and write 3 facts about this topic. And then what we're going to do in the original question here is if you click on these 3 little dots in the bottom corner, you can say go to section based on answer. So you can see once I click that, if they select a key, and again, just for demonstration purpose, I know it doesn't quite make sense, but let's say like they're going to go to the section 1 math quiz, and if they choose the apple, which is incorrect, we're going to make them go to that section 4 wrong answer. And same thing for these other ones as well. If they select the wrong answer, then they have to essentially go there. But if they get the right answer, they continue on the quiz the way it would be. So sorry, I have a bunch of extra sections there, but does anyone have any questions about kind of like the concept of what I'm talking about there with the idea of if you're making a quiz, it doesn't always have to just be, you could make section 2 just be a new page just if you want to space out questions. But the thing that I really like about sections is the idea of like sort of a choose your own adventure type of deal for kids, that if they get something wrong, rather than just, hey, you got it wrong, it's, I'm going to require you to do another one. Maybe you can earn half credit. And this would almost be more for, even though it's a quiz, it's almost like an interactive lesson where as you're watching the video or looking at the diagram, if you get it wrong, I'm going to give you more information to hopefully get you where you need to be so that you can continue, kind of just scaffolding that as we're going. But does anyone have any questions about kind of just that concept of using the sections there?
No, I love that. And I love that now that you guys are experts at screencasting, I mean, your video can be one of your screencasts using it, so you're using a definite example that that, they need. Yeah,
and that's really, again, I know we're looking at this as a quiz, but really these quizzes can act as sort of that interactive lesson that they're walking through. And by the end of the lesson, they could still get a score, but it at least gives the kids a chance that you got it wrong. Oh, I got it wrong. I don't understand the content. It actually, kind of puts them back into play. So the other thing that I wanted to show you guys, or sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, real quick. Another thing I found with sections is when you when you do shuffle question order,
Mhm.
if you don't have any sections, it shuffles all the questions. Whereas like normally my test is broken up into like sections.
Sure.
So I only wanted to shuffle the questions in that section because oftentimes they have to look at a picture and then answer 5 questions. So you want to put like those questions in a section, so it'll mix up those questions in that section. And then I also found like if you add that name question, like that might be the kid's 18th question. So
Oh, okay.
the name, you want to start a new section.
Okay.
The kids always get the title of the test and then type your name, and then
And
after
then do a section.
section 1, and it'll shuffle section 1.
Right.
Section 2 shuffle.
So it won't cut off the video. Like, have you ever done a video? Because if you shuffle, sometimes the video gets detached if you don't do those sections.
Right. Yeah.
That's a great tip, especially let's just reiterate that again. If you do the name and you are doing sections and shuffling, make sure that lives in its own section for sure. Yeah, that's a very important tip.
One question I did want to ask, like under the section title, like in a question, you can add a picture.
Yep.
I haven't found a way to add a picture to the section because it would be nice to only have the picture in there once. So then they have 5 questions and they can always like scroll up and see the picture. But I found I always had to put the picture
in the questions.
All 5 questions, because if not, they might not see the picture until question 3. Do you guys know how to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can, but I'll look it up. So it's saying, so there's a section. If you go to those 3 dots, does it tell you?
Like
so,
a picture.
Right. So unfortunately, yeah. So even though we're in this section, what Doug's saying there too, like, if we try to add an image and let's get one here, just do a quick Google image search. And if we try to put that in, the problem is that
if it shuffles the question order, they might not see that image until like the 5th question.
Right. And yeah, because the problem is it doesn't, like, it would be nice if it could almost go in the description here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm unfortunately, I don't know if there.
But did that do that?
No,
because it's not part of a question.
It's not, but it's kind of just its own entity because this could be a question.
Okay.
Like we could add, questions to this, but the fact that it's in its own box, unfortunately, we can't like take this and drag it up there. It's still not part of that header.
Well, maybe I'll do like a Google suggestion tip or something. But
yeah, and I'll do some research too. There might be a trick around it.
Yeah, so I just put the same picture in all 5 questions just so it didn't matter. It looks a little redundant, but that's the only way I could do it.
Yeah.
Sure. So the only other thing that I just wanted to show you as well is, and this is something that I've been helping some teachers out with, is just that when you finish your quiz and you go to your responses and you click on that little green icon to open all your responses in Sheets. I've had a few teachers that have been asking me, especially as we're doing this online learning bit, and this is just a random vocab quiz that I had here, but I had a few teachers asking, is there a way to quickly look through all of my data and basically sort all the kids that got like a 1 out of 10 or that got, didn't do very well on this. And I just want to show you real briefly in case you never really use Sheets too much, but one of the easiest things that you can do is if you highlight your data. So I'm just going to pull student names and grades here. And if you go to data and click on create filter. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can sort data in Sheets, but I think this is probably one of the most user-friendly. Once you do that, you get this little icon in any of your rows. And obviously I want to sort by the row with a score. So when I click on that, you can choose to filter by values or filter by condition. And let's say that I just want to find students that scored less than a 7 out of 10. Option A is I could just uncheck all the students that scored a 7 out of 10. And then I will only see when I hit OK all my students that scored a 6 or less. And it'll just kind of like temporarily remove all the other students. So I can do a quick look like that. The other option, and I'm just going to check those back just to show you this here, is that you can filter by condition. And depending on the type of quiz you have a lot of different options here. And the one the one request I had from teachers who often would assign their Google quiz as either a 1-point assignment, just because of the distance learning that we're doing right now, where kids are either going to get a 0 or a 1. If it was something that simple where it was just a 0, 1, you could do text starts with and type in 0. And then it will automatically just show you every kid that has a 0 on the assignment. In this case, since I've got, a number out of 10, I could use the less than or equal to, and just kind of in the sample that I said before, if I want to see all the students that had a 6 or less, if I just type in a 6 right there and hit OK, again, it's anyone with a 6 or less. But the biggest thing, like I said, I've had a lot of teachers that have been using that 0-1 point system. So filtering by condition and basically going with the text starts with and making that a 0 will automatically generate a list for you of all your kids that didn't actually complete the assignment. There are some other things that you can do, like color coding conditionally with students in spreadsheets, but we could get into a lot of different equations and things we can use in Sheets. But I wanted to just show you the filter one because I thought that was probably the most user-friendly if you're not familiar with Sheets, just how to sort all your students. If you have 150 and you're looking for all the kids that had a 0 or maybe had less than a 50% or something like that, that's a good way to just do a quick sort. Does anyone have any questions about that? Or comments or shout-outs or anything that you could recommend with that too? All right, cool. I'm going to stop presenting then. And then I don't know if, Shelly, if you want to jump to the imports, or if Doug, but this would be a good time for Doug to maybe share his add-on.
I was going to show feedback, what feedback looks like, and then show how to do this on Google Classroom so that you can import grades. So I don't care, Doug, if you need to go, you can go next. It doesn't matter to me.
Doug says, go ahead, Shelly.
Well, okay. All right. So I'm going to present my screen again. And this was, like I said, 2 years ago when I created this module, I had our tech resource people take it. So this is what it looks like once you start getting responses. You can, so here's your edited quiz. This is the one I created before, but this is what, once the responses come in, this is what it looks like. This will be the magic button once we get to Google Classroom to download as a CSV for you to be able to import it to your Google Classroom. But if you want to take a look at your kids' responses, if you go to summary, it gives you a nice bar graph. It gives you individual scores. It gives answers. It goes through the whole answer process to see. So if you have a question and a lot of people got it wrong, maybe you didn't, put it in right, or it's a good way to see the full responses from everyone. Questions goes by individual questions. And this is where, so I'm taking a look at that first question, what is your name? So I probably don't want to look at that one. Maybe I want to look at this one, which of the following is quadrilateral. So here's where you can change your point value if the kids, like I said, especially for this one where it was either all or nothing, you have to go through there and add the points. But here's this new feature where you can add feedback to that individual kid and they will get to see that. So we start in the beginning under the settings where you can add generic feedback, but this add feedback would be for those individual kids and those individual problems that they get wrong. So this is where you can enter feedback for that. This is where you can add a link to something. This is where you can also add a movie. So that, I believe, is a brand new feature in Google Forms. I don't remember seeing that before. Does anybody have anything to say about that one? Is there anything I'm missing on that?
There's a nice feature. You might have to go to question.
Individual?
No. Summary. Under summary, it gives you a list of all the questions that kids got less than 50% right on.
How do you do that?
So maybe your kid, maybe there were no questions that scored less than a 50%.
Oh, okay.
But like my kids just took a test and it gives you a list of questions. And then the nice thing is, like, if you're having like a Google Meet session with your kids, you can show that screen, share the screen with the kids. And then if you click on each one of those questions, you can quickly find all the questions that kids struggled on. So
Okay.
it makes a list for you.
That's awesome. Another thing I should mention is, and we'll get to this when we go to Google Classroom, is, and this is only in Chromebooks, but that locked feature where the kids can't go to other sources to look for answers. Right now it's for Chromebooks, but I'm hoping eventually that'll be something that will come to something that we can use as well. And then if you click on individual, you can see how each student did individually. And then again, this is where you can also add that individual feedback.
Just a fun tip about the locked screen feature. It worked really, really well at the middle school, both in 7th and 8th grade. I don't know if the high school kids would be more savvy, but I would always tell them how I had the settings set up in my Google quiz that if they clicked off the tab, there was a very high percentage chance that it would automatically give them a 0 and shut their computer down and all kinds of things that weren't true. But it was, it seemed to,
it worked
out a little bit where, they'd raise their hand if they accidentally clicked on a tab and went, oh, I clicked on another tab. I'm so sorry. And I'd be like, it's okay. I think we got away with this one, kind of thing. So again, I don't know if the high school kids are more savvy, but it felt like 8th grade and below, they bought into that pretty well. So yeah.
So now I'm in my Google Classroom and I'm done this. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. I created my quiz. If I'm using Google Classroom, how do I put it into Google Classroom? Well, I click on the Classworks page and I go to create. One of the things they recently added is quiz assignment. That's if you are if you're creating the quiz right within Google Classroom, but we don't recommend doing that. Both Jonathan and I just do it from our drive like we just did now, and then upload it from our drive. If you're going to use a form, you have to make it an assignment. And something very important is you can only have this as your assignment. You can only have the quiz. So if you were to add the quiz and were to add maybe a PowerPoint presentation, it's not going to be able to import it. You have to it needs to be a standalone assignment in order to be able to import. So I'm going to call this math quiz. And then now I'm going to add, and I'm going to add from my drive.
Kelly,
I'm going to go ahead.
So if you click on that option that says make a quiz,
yes,
like an assignment, what it does is it creates a new form for you. But if you do that, then you can add the form that you just created, and it comes up with a button that you can automatically import grades.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to do that whole CSV file, download, upload.
Okay.
So if you go to that quiz button, it'll make a brand new quiz for you. You delete that, you add yours. And then, yeah, as long as you don't add anything else to it, it gives you that import feature.
All right.
So Doug, I'm just curious, what's the benefit of doing that versus pulling it from Drive? Or is it basically, it's just doing the same thing?
Because I think doing it this way, you would have to download the CSV file and then upload the grades. Whereas, let's say in the morning I check and 5 kids did it, I can say import, it sucks all their grades in automatically. And then maybe in the afternoon I check a couple more kids did it. I don't have to re-download the CSV file. You just click the import button and it brings all the kids' questions over.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that even this way, we're talking about getting their grades into Google Classroom, right?
Right, not into the web, not into Warwick Web Grades.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe there's 2 ways to do it then.
Yeah, no, if we're talking about just getting it to Google Classroom, I believe this does the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just so
yes.
that in mind. It's again, you can do it either way, but yeah.
Right. So I believe over here I need to make sure my points are the same. Am I right on that? And I don't remember what I put. I don't know that I tallied up the point value, but I'm going to go ahead and click assign here. But do you see how that grade import it's on there? So I am not sure. Where did that just go?
I think it's math quiz at the bottom there. Shelley.
Math quiz at the bottom. Okay. Whoop. So there it is. And I can, once the students take it, then I'm going to go to, let's see. Then I go to that import grades. And one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're importing your grades and that you're returning it to all the kids, because what that does is it stamps it on the CSV, and otherwise you won't be able to import it to your web grades. So then I would click import when it's done, and then you would see on that left-hand side, you would see all the kids' grades. Once you're done with that, go ahead.
When you import kids' grades, if you allowed them to have multiple attempts,
Mm-hmm.
what score will it import? The best one or the last one? If they did it 3 times, what will import? Or will it not import unless I clicked make this a quiz and you only get 1 attempt?
So I've never done it. Has anybody ever done it where they have multiple chances to? I would think it would be the last one.
Yeah,
right?
I thought because I remember we were messing around with that before, Nikki, and I thought that it basically will overwrite whatever your most recent attempt would be, but that doesn't necessarily.
But the most recent.
So you may, for those kids that took it 3 times, you might need to look at their scores and then make sure the right one is in there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because if the kid did better the second time than the third, it's still going to give them that third attempt.
As far as I know, it's going to be the last one they took.
Okay.
In the Google Sheet, it would probably just create a new line. So it would probably have their email address twice with the 2 different scores. So yeah, it might get confused which one to pull from.
Yeah, see, I could be wrong, but I was thinking maybe the timestamp had something to do with it, how it was pulled as well. But yeah, I get what you're saying, just because it's still hitting the same email. I just know that on the sheets, it kind of is in that descending order where I would imagine it would almost overwrite, because it's going to find that first attempt, and then by the time it gets to the bottom of the sheet, it kind of go in that order. So I would assume that second one overwrites that grade.
Yeah.
So it is possible then to make a Google form have multiple attempts, and also in the settings, click make this a quiz. You can do both for multiple attempts.
Yeah, as long as you don't limit to one response.
Okay.
And you can manipulate that CSV. Once you download that CSV, you can manipulate it.
Okay.
So if you needed to add to it there, you can do that. And, so yeah. So once you return the scores to the kids, that stamps it on the CSV. So I'm going to click here, and I believe if I hit the wheel, download grades as a CSV, that's what you're going to download so that you have that on your desktop so that you can upload it to your web grades. Now, it's hard for us because we don't have students, but what I did was, and this is something that we'll add to when we've recorded this, so we'll add this video, but we'll also add this link. And this link is a couple pages, but this in a couple places. But what I did was I went through and I did screenshots of this whole process of how to import grades from a Google quiz in Google Classroom. So if you see, I already kind of went through that where I enabled the grades, where I imported the grades. This is where you return the grades, and you'll see if you make sure that it's stamped on the side where it gives them the score. Once you have all those things and you've returned them, you're now ready to download your CSV. So you download that CSV, and then you go into your grade book and you create an assignment. You give it the same point value. You click on that assignment, and then you choose a file. This is where you would choose that CSV. In the field, you would make sure, one of the things you need to make sure is that you have the kids' email addresses, because that's what pulls the 99100 number, and that you pull their grade, and then it's going to automatically import to your classroom. So we'll make sure that these directions are with that in our document. But the biggest problem, if I get teachers that can't do it, it's that they didn't return the grade, and then it doesn't stamp on the CSV. So it's trying to import, but it's not importing anything because there's nothing on the spreadsheet.
So Shelley, that'll dump your the scores into your actual grade book.
Yes.
See, I've never done that before, so I'm excited to try that.
Good, good. Yeah.
Definitely save some time. Yeah.
It's a little clunky the first and second time you do it, but once you get used to it, it's not that hard.
Okay.
And they did have a feature, like the first time I used it, maybe last year, if you accidentally pick the wrong assignment, it'll like wipe out all your grades for that assignment. But they put in a feature that if it detects that there's any grades there, it'll pop up with like a little message. Are you sure you want to overwrite those grades?
So Nancy put that in? Like Warwick put that in?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I accidentally wiped out a whole group of kids' grades one time because I accidentally picked the wrong assignment.
Okay.
Because it was putting the assignments in the wrong order. So she also had it sort by date. So like the last assignment you put in is going to be the last one.
So you really can't mess it up now.
Unless you say, yes, please overwrite all my grades.
Right. Then it's your own fault.
And there is one thing to note with that too. Like if you happen to have students that say you have 5 students that didn't take it, you could still that spreadsheet that Google Forms collects is constantly living. So basically, when you upload following Shelly's directions to your gradebook, if you realize like, oh, 5 more students took this, you basically do the exact same thing again, and it'll just overwrite and add all those kids in that didn't take it. So, it's basically the same steps. And then when the quiz is closed, then it's over at that point. So
Great.
I have a question about Google Forms in general. Is this the best tool to use? I have 2 clubs, one honor society and one club, and we do elections. Is a Google form the best way to do an election? Or is there something better for it? Like if I have an office and I have 3 kids running for it, there is no right answer, but what stops somebody from choosing more than one answer, more than one person in a category?
I think that you would just make it a multiple choice question and not like a checkbox question.
Not a checkbox.
If it's multiple choice, then they can only select one answer on that. And then Nikki, also just an FYI, so I'm meeting with Hazel tomorrow and Brooke Miller because they're doing elections at the middle school, and we're going to have the students record moderated Flipgrid videos of their like speeches and their kind of their whole spiel. And then in that Flipgrid, kids can, once they moderate and release the videos, they'll share that link with the kids. So the kids can watch the video from each of the potential candidates. And then there'll be the Google form link directly in there that it's like, now that you've watched the video, you click on the link and you can basically just select who you're going to vote for then. And that'll put it in a nice spreadsheet for you. So
well, I'm in the middle of, I already am doing it right now for GSA. They took the past week to submit videos into Google Classroom.
Gotcha.
And watched them during our meeting yesterday. I wasn't sure if it would be appropriate to give them full access to watching each other's videos without me showing them to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the whole.
And
yeah, it sounds like the whole reason that we're using Flipgrid at the middle school is because the videos are moderated. So just kind of like what we did with our Earth Day videos, anyone can submit the videos, but no one can see them until the teacher clicks on the video and says, okay, this is kosher. I'm going to release this now to the public, being whoever has the link. So, that's the same thing. If they're putting in Google Classroom, as long as you can get your eyes on them first. And then I think the Google Forms makes perfect sense for how they could vote them. So.
Okay, so make sure it's multiple choice and not checkbox.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
And Nikki, I think there's a way, if you go under your student search, like I put together a video for Emily last year because I guess they always have to count up the homecoming ballots.
Mm-hmm.
You go under your club, anybody in your club should like drop down filter. So like if she wanted just the 12th grade girls, she could pick 12th grade, she could pick females, and it populates a whole list of all the 12th grade girls. And then if you download that as a CSV file, then you can just upload that to a Google quiz. So next year she could literally send out a homecoming ballot that's all digital. It could only take it one time, and then it'll tally all the responses for her.
Okay.
So it might do that with your clubs because I think clubs are now in that as well.
Yeah, they are. I use that tab to email all club kids.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good measure, or a method rather. Good. And I have one other question, but it's rubric related, not Google form related.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll hold off on that one. But so that's the basics of the Google form and using Google Classroom and importing grades. But as you get like Doug and you can use it more and you're savvy with spreadsheets, there's different add-ons that can be used with Google Forms. That's probably like an advanced, something that even Jonathan and I need to dig a little deeper into. Sometimes there's been some things at the high school that's come up where we've used different extensions that have worked really well. But Doug has a really good one that he's going to share with us that might be worth, it's a paid one, but for some of you, it might be worth purchasing.
And there's still some free feature, even if you want to
Yes,
try.
yes. There's, what is it, free that you could do 10 quizzes?
Yeah. Oh, 10 questions. Yeah.
10 questions.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just show you the quiz that was made using this. So just based on those the topics. So here's the name of the quiz. I don't know if you guys use any like special resources, but my kids always get to use the periodic table and other forms. So I always put a link to those forms like right in the test description. That way, if they click on the link, it'll pop it up in a new tab for them. And again,
Nice
the
tip.
name has to be in this first section so it doesn't get shuffled in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go down. One thing that I found pretty helpful was, let me just click on this question. Under those dots. Oh no, that's the question. Yeah, right here. If you click on a question, if you click on the little dots, clicking on this description, I had a hard time finding that for some reason. But so, for example, here's my question, and I just wanted them to enter a 1 if there was no coefficient. So you can add like a little subtext right there. So I found that pretty helpful because later on, I don't know if you guys have classes with special symbols. I know, Nikki, you would have like a tilde and like accent letters.
Yeah.
So what I did was to make it easier for the kids, I just pasted those into one of those descriptions. Yeah, like right here. The kids would have to enter, I don't know, the chemical formula for water so that they get that subscript. I added that, all the little subscript letters. So then they could just highlight that, paste it into their answer, and that would give them that subscript letter.
I'm going to try your method. I've been just putting those into the directions and tell them to copy and paste them.
Yeah.
You're saying if I put them in a description that they can click on them and they appear.
Right. So, for example, here's my question. I didn't want it to be too distracting, so I want the question to be the question. But if you click on this show description, you can put that that little statement down there in the description feature.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Or like sometimes, I don't know if anybody teaches math here, but if you want like 2 decimal places in the response, like even though their calculator might give them 7 decimals, I want it pretty much to mark any answer, right, that's within the 2 decimals. So I could say, please record your answer with 2 decimal places or something along those lines.
I like that a lot, Doug, because if you're, especially if you have sections, even just the idea of making those descriptions, if you would put your symbols or things on the first page and the kids would copy it, but then, if you're going to different sections, it makes sense to have it right underneath the question. I think that's great.
Yep. So let me show you real quick what that wrong answer feature looks like. So let me go to responses. So yeah, if you go down to here, frequently missed questions, you can
nice.
15 kids got this question right. So I can quickly just go over the top 4 questions. Like at 2 o'clock, I'm having office hours with my kids to go over a test. So this is pretty much what I'm going to pull up and show. Well, let's go over this question. Only 4 out of 15 people got this right. And then if you click on that question, it takes you right to the question and all the responses.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice feature.
Is that new? Do you know?
I've never seen it before until this year, but I never really did a lot with Google quizzes. I did mainly Moodle quizzes, but Google quizzes is way easier. And then the last thing is under this individual. The nice thing about having them type their name, I never knew what the kids' ID numbers were, but if you go like scroll down to the very first question right here, the kid's name, that makes it pretty easy to see who I'm looking at. And then what you do is you just basically scroll through until you find a red one. And, oh, here's a red one. Okay, this kid said lowercase L, but I wanted, I don't know, capital L to be right. Then you just go up to here and give them a point. And then at the end, you click save and it updates their scores. So that was a pretty nice feature.
Hey, Doug, when you were talking about their name being on line 1,
yeah,
Is there, if you were to click on your spreadsheet, does that name come up and there's scores right beside it?
Possibly. I can take a look.
Yeah,
It
So
should. It
You
should.
see the 99 number, and then you should see the name as its own column, which is why I do like going into the sheet sometimes, because you can see right there the
Yeah,
score and the kid's name is right next to it. And that's why if you sort it then too, like, I mean, you can color code and sort really quickly if you have 150 kids, so that you can just quickly see, like, all right, who are my 10 kids that I want to reach out to immediately because they bombed it or something like that.
This is so enlightening, because what I've been doing these last 5 weeks is I wasn't using the spreadsheet. I was back on the other sheet, and I was looking at individual, and I
Yeah.
was clicking the arrow and trying to measure up my screen so I could see the kid's name and the score at the top. And just do
yeah.
Mm.
This is a little nicer. Yeah, that's a big one.
that was awesome.
Okay, so let me show you this quick add-on. So what I first of all have to do is pull up my test. So here would be like my Microsoft Word version of my test. Okay, it's formatted exactly how I want it. The problem is Google extensions only work with like a web page, and right now this is a Microsoft Word document. So, I mean, I technically could, kind of like Shelly was doing, just kind of half screen this and then have my Google form over here and just kind of keep going back and forth between the two. But if I go, what you do is you just right click on your test and you can view with Google Drive. So this is still a Word document right now, because you can see that DOCX at the top. And technically I could, what I'll do is I'll go here to open with Google Docs. So now I could technically type on this if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that, because when you change something in Google Docs that is originally a Word file, it messes up some of the formatting. Like the arrow doesn't show up here. So if I would make any changes right now, that could potentially mess up my Word file. But what you do is you just go up to File, Save as Google Docs, and now this is a separate file and is the Google Doc version of that file.
Wow.
So on my, so I have a Microsoft Word version of this test, which is all the good formatting that I want. And then when you switch it to Google Docs, it messes up a little bit of the formatting. But the nice thing about this is with this, if you go up to add-ons, you can do a doc to form and then create form from doc. So it's just an extension you have to get. And it's this little thing right here. So it pretty much, you've got your test in the screen. You've got this little thing right here. I always collect their username. If you click this ask for name, that makes that question number 1. What's your name? And then for question number 1 here, all I have to do is highlight this information, use selected text. It pulls it right over. And then if I wanted multiple choice, let's say I want these 4 choices, right, or 5 choices right here. Copy those, paste them in. Now you have to delete some of the spaces, but as long as each answer is on a separate line, it'll make them a separate multiple choice question. So right now this would be like A, B, C, D, E. And then you basically go to add a question. And when you get to question 10, it'll say, well, you've used up all your free questions, but for $3, I figured this was worth my time. I've done 3 tests like this now. I made like a 40 question quiz. At the end, you create form, and that form is all made for you.
Hey, Doug, do you set the answer key after you create the form, or is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so it would be nice if there was an answer option here,
Right.
but yeah, this is just creating a Google form. But then if you go under settings, you can add the answer key after the fact. So I might have to make one Shelly's way and kind of do it like side by side split screen. I'm not exactly sure which would be faster, but
no, I mean, it seems like it's pretty nice that the fact that you've got the little window right there, especially if you're working from something like a Word document originally, or if you've pretty much got the test already created rather than, having to just go through it. I mean, I wonder in a race who would win there, but
I think Doug would probably win.
but no, it's I like it. I like it. I've never seen this one before.
Yeah. And I figured $3 was a nice charitable donation. You can,
yes.
you can get as much money as you wanted, but whoever created this, I mean, I think this is genius.
Yeah. You're buying your time. That's
Let me show you one other thing that I had to kind of learn. So it's called Unicode text. This gets into a little bit of programming, but in Microsoft Word, you can do subscripts, superscripts, all sorts of crazy little symbols. But in Google Docs, because it's like a web browser, you can't really do all of that. So let's say there's some special symbol, I don't know, in Spanish that you can't get into Google Docs. You basically look up whatever the Unicode code is for that symbol. And then up here, you probably normally are in your US keyboard. I have a lot of Greek symbols in chemistry, so I have a Greek keyboard. So like I could type lambda, mu, whatever. But if you click on this Unicode, if you hold down your option key while typing these 4 digits, it'll give you a subscript 0. Or if you do option 2070, it'll give you a superscript. So that was one thing I found I had to do to get like all of my chemical equations into a Google form.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great trick. That's
I
know Renee was having some issues when she was trying to get transfer from Google Doc versus from Word with just all the accents and different things like that. That's a great tip. Was that sheet that just had all the symbols on it, Doug? Was that something that you made, or you just pulled that from somewhere?
Yeah, I found it on the web somewhere, and I kind of added some other special chemistry symbols. But if you just go to a Google browser and type in Unicode E accent, like it'll give you the 4-digit code to hold in option. But again, you have to be not in the US keyboard, you have to be in the Unicode keyboard, and it's pretty easy to add a keyboard.
Great tip.
Well, this has been awesome. This has been amazing. It's 1:56. We have another session at 2:00, so we should probably wrap this up. And then if there's any questions, we can always, work with you guys individually. But thank you so much. This was amazing. I think we all got something from this, I hope. And
thank you so much for sharing, everyone that did.
Doug, you're awesome. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, when we're doing these kind of things, I feel like getting your insight of what you're actually doing in the classroom and what you've encountered, whether it's questions or whether it's just that wisdom. It's appreciated. We've had tons of other teachers that have emailed us already and just said like, hey, can't make it, but can we get a copy of the video? So that'll go a long way for other teachers that are looking for answers as well. So
yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for everything.
You guys are awesome.
Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the sunshine. It's gorgeous out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.